This work session, City Council on March 21st, starting at 3:04. Let's see, Councilman Hamlin, give us an invocation. Please stand, everyone.
God, we want to thank you for this day, Father, this day that you have made, Father, for us. Father, we just ask that you be with each and every one of us up here, Father, that the decisions that we make, Father, doing anything but to glorify you, Father, in everything that we do. And Father, we ask for protection over this city. We ask for protection over all of our workers, Father, and everything that they do on their comings and goings, Father. May your hand be around each and every one of the trucks, Father, and each and one person that's in this room. We just say all of this in Jesus' mighty name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Please be seated. All right, let's start with number 3, MPO presentation of the Forward 50 Highway Projects. Kevin Walker. Hello, sir.
Mr. Mayor, good afternoon. Council members, good afternoon to you, and double good afternoon to you, sir, my board member, your board member, Steve Thompson. So glad to be here today. I did send a PowerPoint show that I believe you have a paper copy of, and I'm going to get to that. But honestly, what I'd like to do in a few minutes is roll through that PowerPoint show pretty quick. I want to just tell you a little bit more about who we are, how we're funded, why we do what we do. This is our 60th year of being in existence. Both Odessa and Midland became 50,000 plus population cities from the 1960 census, and the federal Department of Transportation put into place the requirement to have organizations called MPOs, Metropolitan Planning Organizations, for any city in the country that has 50,000 or more population. Now, they made logical decisions about this. They didn't have Odessa as one MPO, Midland as another. They don't have Dallas as one MPO and Fort Worth as another. Houston and Galveston are all tied together. San Antonio, as you would expect, is standalone. And then, of course, you drive up 35 and you hit Austin and on into Waco and so on. There's 25 MPOs around the state. We don't have to apply for grant funds. We get our money off of formula funding. You buy a gallon of gasoline, X percent of that, and I forget the number. I think it's 20 cents, goes to Washington, gets redistributed nationwide, and the money comes back to us based on the population that we have here, based on the lane miles of what is called on-system roads, i.e., state-maintained roads, not county roads, not city streets, but the big roads that you drive on a daily basis. We get our money off of that. So we are about middle of the pack in the 25 MPOs around the state. Sherman Denison doesn't get anything like we get in terms of money. Victoria doesn't. Corpus Christi gets more. El Paso gets more, and so on. We're basically right in the middle. And what the feds give to us, and they also give, they also give to TxDOT. They give us money for planning purposes. We operate off of generally about $750,000 a year for our planning budget. We don't turn dirt with that. We don't construct anything. And in the bigger picture, we don't construct anything anyway, because we don't own the highways. We, through District 2 Representative Thompson and others, make the decisions on where to spend the money that comes into us essentially on an annual basis. So I've given you the source of the money. Goes to DC, comes to Austin because USDOT has a contract arrangement with TxDOT to manage the money that's coming into Texas. And then TxDOT we're subcontractors to TxDOT. And we answer to all the federal and state requirements, and as you know, sometimes they can change fairly quickly. Although I will say, even though there have been a lot of changes since November, they really haven't directly affected transportation and transportation planning programs at all, and I don't really expect them to either. That's just an editorial there. But we are a multimodal planning agency. You know about the Wildcatters Trail that's been talked about for approximately 5 years now. You know because Easy Rider has a direct contract with you, and they also, Midland and Odessa both benefit from Easy Rider. We try to do trails. We don't deal with privately run transportation services like rail or airlines. That's a whole different deal. That's not our money. We don't get involved with that at all. But I am pleased to tell you that we just finished a plan back in November, a required plan. We have to, the feds require us to have a 20-year plus plan. We choose to do 25 every 5 years. And so it was time for us to put out a new one. We put out a new one in November, and I'm crossing my fingers here. We haven't heard anything back from the agencies that we submitted the plan to, which are USDOT and TxDOT. And I'm just going to tell you, no news is good news in this situation, which I'm going to take as an assumption that they like the document that Steve and others approved to go forward. It's a $3.5 billion plan over a 25-year period. I have been around the agency for quite some time now. I have been part of the preparation and delivery of 3 different plans. I don't think the last one, I didn't check before I came here, but I don't think it was even $1 billion. Now we're looking at 3.5, and let me tell you why that is. We have to operate on a system just like you. You've got incoming tax money, you've got needs at your various department levels, street construction, trash pickup, blah, whatever you fund. You have to manage the money that's coming in against the needs that are coming up from your various departments and City Hall itself. Same thing with us. We have to have what the feds call a fiscally constrained plan. If I tell you it's $3.5 billion, we better have some reasonable evidence that over that 25-year period, there's actually going to be $3.5 billion come into the Midland Odessa area to the MPO. So what we based our thinking on was a very solid foundation. And I won't get too much into the weeds with TxDOT's funding categories, but I will tell you, you may already know this, but the Texas Transportation Commission is 5 members appointed by the governor to manage transportation projects, not planning, but the actual projects. You're going to build an overpass in Dallas, you're going to widen the road here. That's what they do. They put this massive list together every year. And what they do is approve the document based on what Glenn Hagar is telling them in terms of available money. Since 2018, TxDOT and the Transportation Commission, those 5 members, have doubled down, and don't use the word double exactly, it's just a term. They have put a lot of money into not only the Permian, but the Midland Odessa area too, because they realize that any given day, 15% of your cash flow is coming from right here. So you want to make sure things move through here, preferably safely, and double preferably quickly. So we don't want congestion, and we like safety. So with that said, we made an assumption that if taking the year 2018, which they started to give us some money, all the way through to 2024 when they give us a lot of money, and this is the Transportation Commission using what they call strategic priority money. If they want to go widen the Gulf Coast intercoastal canal with it and use all that money for that, that's their prerogative. But they know the importance, as I said, of this region, and there's other regions around the state too. But based on what we saw them deliver, if you will, in 2023, 24, we got about 90 million coming in a year. Extrapolate that at about 4% interest over time, you're going to get to roughly your 3.49 million figure, which we have in the plan. Now, I'll stop with the plan, and then, but I will tell you one more thing quickly before we dive into your projects, which is probably what you're mostly interested in. But nothing happens fast at an MPO. I don't care which MPO you are. Things have to get funneled through TxDOT. Remember, it's their highways, whether it's an FM road or a US highway, whatever it is, it's their roads. So we all want something happening tomorrow. I know that. It's not like the development in the city where somebody has a great idea. Well, your Bass Pro Shops deal, that's an awesome deal for you. That's going to happen a whole lot faster in the private sector than it is on the public side with obtaining right-of-way, getting environmental clearance, making sure all the funding is there. It takes a while to do these things. We dream of them, we put them in a plan. They're bona fide projects, but it does take a while. So I'm going to show you, at least with my hands, here's your 25-year plan. TxDOT has what they call a unified transportation program. You don't need to memorize that, but it's in the law. It's in the transportation code that they have to do this. So it's a 10-year document. In that 10-year document is required to be a list of projects that are approved by the commission during that 10-year period. Right now, we're disregarding the remaining 15 years, except over time, as that 10-year window marches along, we're going to be picking up the projects as we go toward that 25th year. Excuse me. The key objective to getting in that 10-year window is to try to get yourself within the 4-year window, which it's called a TIP, Transportation Improvement Program. Because once a project is in the TIP, it indicates to everyone it's fully funded, it's environmentally cleared, it's waiting TxDOT to go find somebody, a firm, and you know who the contractors are around here. They have to put it out for bid, and they, just like you got to give it to the low bidder, depending on what it is. But when you're dealing with construction, it's low bid. So they open sealed bids and give it to the names that you already know that do a lot of the construction around here. That's how things move through the system. Now, if you have a question, I'd love to answer it, but if you don't, I'll sort of tell you the highlights of the projects that are in the plan and some of the short range ones for you. And this is in what I just referred to as the TIP, the TIP. Excuse me. At the south end, where US 385 meets 338 to the south. The north piece got opened maybe 5-6 years ago. The south piece is up for a brand new interchange, just like the one at Yukon and East 338. Get the safety factor, improve the safety factor at that very unsafe location, 385 and 338. It's about a $35 million project. It is on tap for fiscal year 2026. Which means anytime after September of this year, TxDOT can go out to bid and have the companies put in their sealed bids and go construct it. Generally speaking, these things are 18 months to construct it. That's one that you've got coming in the very near future. Some that are a little further out in our plan is addressing 42nd Street. From East Loop all the way to West Loop, and that's TxDOT's already working on some safety factors associated with that, which I'm not an engineer, but in my mind that means medians at the appropriate locations, just like you all did on when you reconstructed University Drive. You made that road wider and a lot safer. Excuse me, and it opened up again about 2 years ago. That section of University Drive, that was a city project. But we've got taking Loop 338 and upgrading it to a freeway section. That's a very important project. There's about slightly under $1 billion within that $3.5 billion plan for those pieces alone. And obviously it's a full loop around Odessa. There was a study done that TxDOT paid for. It took 6 different component pieces out of Loop 338 and analyzed each one at a time. 4 of those 6 pieces are in our plan. And the only reason that 6 of the 6 aren't in the plan is because it would have taken, just a guesstimate here, 2.25 of the total 3.5. And we've got to look at regional needs over time as well. The Loop 338 is massively important to Odessa. Everyone knows that because you develop frontage roads and improve safety conditions, improve mobility. Those are the things we want to happen. We've also got a project in western part of our region, FM 866, which is actually in the county, but we're gonna widen that one to 4-lane. We've got a traffic signal that ought to be coming in very soon. I don't know the exact date, but it's at Murphy and I-20 on the service road. Understand that's a very dangerous location there too. A lot of backup of traffic, so that one's coming. We're gonna build 52nd Street and 56. About 5 years ago, there was some, if I may loosely call it a preliminary treatment to that location. It's always been on our plan to have an interchange there, an overpass and all 4 access points on that project. The interim project was to better align 56 and 52nd and kill that grade separation right there. TxDOT did all that, put in the traffic signal. That in my is a temporary condition until, thank you very much, until the funding is, well, actually the funding is available, but what we need to do is put it in the 4-year plan as soon as we can, and that involves Steve and others working with TxDOT, getting it up into that 4-year plan. And I'll tell you, because I see it from the side, and I imagine you do too. You know your constituents, but whatever. But it's the pressures are. You've got all these needs, and only so much revenue to tend to these needs. I don't work for TxDOT, but I know they deal with that all the time. And they'll we've all got bright ideas on how to move things along quickly, and that I view as one of our more important roles, is to collectively work with TxDOT, and I mean the whole MPO now, not just Odessa, and try to move things along faster in this region, because it's a very rapidly growing region. I don't need to tell you that. And it's anyway, that's my summary of some of the I've given you the bigger projects. We're also one of the actually another big one is some people call them direct connects, or the term flyover is also used, where you can be on one highway system. You're in Fort Worth or Austin or whatever, you're on 183 going over to 35. You just hang up in the air about 200 feet, less than that, up in the air, make your 45-degree turn, get on to 35 or whatever you're doing. We're going to do 2 of those too. One at the western end of 191 coming into this community, and the other one at the eastern end going into Midland. Those are 2, because there's a lot of commuter traffic on 191. I drive it most of the time. I would say it's one of the least used truck traffic roads, except for Jones Brothers being out there with their pit, because they're running up and down that all the time. But I don't see a lot of trucks on 191 between the loop and the loop. So anyway, so what I'm getting at is it's really workers, commuter traffic going between the 2 communities, and of course retail traffic on the weekends and things like that too. But we are. I don't think unless you really want me to hit the slideshow, I think I'd rather just tell you who we are and then see if you have any questions. I told you we were formulated in 1965. There's 7-member board. Odessa is represented on it, and you may be aware that it's by resolution that Steve Thompson is the city's representative. Midland has a representative, Midland County, Ector County. We have a small sliver of Martin County, which contains the northern part of the city of Midland. So Martin County's on the board. Easy Rider is on the board because we're a multimodal planning group, and also TxDOT. 7 members, I would tell you every day that group works very well together. I would tell you it's a cooperative atmosphere in the room when we meet. It's how do we make this whole region better? And it's a delight to see that. I'm telling you, you can work with boards that don't always operate that way, but this one does. And we're located out there at the airport. We rent a building space from the city of Midland right by the runway, so we're pretty easily accessed. But you can see why we need to be located between the 2 communities, because our interests lie in both places.
Mr. Walker?
Yes, sir.
You mentioned the Wildcatter Trail. Where are we with that? As far as, is it completed? Or is
No,
it...
sir. Midland applied for a grant in March of 2023. They got the grant. I want to say it was just a little bit under $4 million. And they are designing it right now from the Scarborough Sports Complex going westbound. And I don't know if they applied in January of this year for another round of that. It's through what's called Transportation Alternatives Funding. Those are competitive grants. If you live in Lubbock, it's not a competitive grant because they get that money anyway. But we live in effectively a smaller place, so we have to compete for it.
I recall a conversation as a city council person, maybe a year and a half ago about that, and I was just curious, since you brought it up. My understanding back then was that it'll go to Scarborough, to that point in Midland, and far west to on the UTPB property?
Yes.
Is that correct, on 338?
Yes, and I'm glad you said that because UTPB also applied for grant funds, but they're going to spend their grant money inside their own campus. Yeah. And I believe the dollar figure was substantially higher than what Midland got. But it is, when it's all said and done, if it stays on the design that I've seen, right, it'll be a 19-mile corridor. Okay. It goes to the UTPB Midland campus and then immediately turns south and then heads to the west to the main campus.
Yeah, as I recall the design, it's something to, I've got great expectations for it to happen. I hope I'm still alive when it's completed, but thank you for bringing me up to date on that.
Sure, yes, sir. Be happy to, and we're available anytime you want to talk to us. I have no issue giving you my cell number. Would love to hear from you because I want to know the pulse of this community. I want to know what everyone's interested in.
So, council member, just a real quick update on that. So, the Odessa portion of the Wildcatter Trail was not awarded to Odessa, so we're going back through the application process now.
Oh, yes, I recall something about some. Okay, good enough.
It was misfiled.
Yeah, I remember that now. I remember that now. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. When it was submitted incorrectly. So it's a little embarrassing, but we're by that now, so we'll get it fixed. So, Cameron, would you tell the council, please, because I don't think most of them are aware of how we expedite projects. And by the way, you'll be getting coming. The light at 191 in Yukon is. We're gonna do the expedition thing on that. So just explain to the board how we're getting the overpass at 338 and 385, and what we do to move those things up on the project board.
Good cue there, sir. Both the Odessa Economic Development Corporation and the Midland EDC, contributed $15 million apiece. And I want to say this goes back to around about 2017, 2018 time period. And of that $15 million each, the development corporations picked basically 5 projects each. Obviously, the Midland side on Midland County, and the others over here on the Odessa side. But one of them was Fadri Road. Another was as you pointed out, the Yukon at 338. By contributing the money from essentially a non-federal source, the game changes. When you say we've got skin in this thing, we want to see it move along a little faster, and the success stories are big on that one. You've got 2 interchanges now, North Loop at 385, and then Yukon. You've got 52, 56 in the loop, or not the loop, excuse me, in the process, as I told you. We got some others coming. So that money goes a long way to tell the Texas Transportation Commission, it's not just our handout. We want you to do these things for us, but we got stake in it too. And those are important things. And those, by the way, roughly were $2 to $3 million apiece of those 15 million. But there are some smaller contributions that those corporations can make to expedite things that are needed on a faster level, such as traffic signals, slight changes to a location where traffic's not moving very well that needs a quick upgrade to it. I'll give you an example. If you ever drive north up 1788 from Business 20, you go past all the development on the west side, and you hit 191 right there. It used to be that you couldn't make an easy right turn, and same thing coming eastbound on 191. You couldn't make a nice easy right turn. So all that does is congest that whole darn intersection until the light changes. And if you're behind an 18-wheeler or two of them, you're not getting through that cycle anyway. So those little things, and I call them little things because they're relatively cheap, but they're very important. And the EDCs can contribute to that. Obviously the city can too, but and I don't mean to speak for TxDOT, but they do have a bucket full of projects, and their money supply is a known quantity to them. So they've got to make decisions on where the money gets spent.
Mr. Walker, I have just a generalized question.
Yes.
The Joe Tucker, for instance, in the city of Odessa has all of our roads prioritized. He knows what the next one he's going to be working on. But I can see the tremendous competition of cities in Texas and then with TxDOT. So what is really, just for my edification, what is the best channels for cities to work with to the squeaky wheel gets grease, to address those channels? What would the MTP, we have working with TxDOT, the board that Councilman Thompson is on. What are the main channels for the cities to work through to get attention?
I would be off base, and please understand where I'm coming from, if I told you to continue to knock on TxDOT's door. They in fact they discourage that, not because you're not welcome. That's not what I'm saying.
It's through a proper channel,
But
so they would be.
Right. The channels really are through the MPO. And as I said, and thank you again for the cue, if there's some non-federal, non-state money that's injected into the equation, now things can move along quicker. Now, and I'll, with a caveat to that, if you're dealing with an overpass that's going to take 3 years to design anyway and 2 years to build, that money that is put in by an EDC or a private company, it's going to take a while for reality to hit the ground.
So, Councilman, maybe this will help you, just to give you an idea of how some of the stuff works. We got into a discussion last MPO meeting when the overpass opened at Yukon and 191. And the discussion that we had with TxDOT was, what do you got going there? I mean, is that going to be a four-way stop or lights or what? Well, right now it's going to be a four-way stop. We got in this good discussion about that's going to be a nightmare because that's going to be right across the street from Bushman's new development and Bass Pro Shop. And so there, you can see a lot of congestion coming there down both service roads. So I asked the question, and Eric, TxDOT engineer, he said that it's already been wired. Pedestals are there for the stoplights. All we got to do is find the money to order the stoplights, which they can do. But because we had this $15 million up, this discussion we've had is that, and we've had this with ODC already, we're going to take $1 million out of that fund so we can get those lights up, hopefully, before Bass Pro Shop's open, because that's going to be a nightmare. And because Dorado Drive is coming around from the other side behind Bass Pro Shops, and if we don't get those lights up there, we're not going to have trying to get ahead of the curve is all I'm trying to say. Mm-hmm. But because we've got money available, that's how we expedite the project. And
Makes sense.
That's absolutely
tickles
correct.
them to death.
Right.
And we'll have a stake in this overpass at 338 and 385 on the south side.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very dangerous intersection, so I think we've got $1 million or $2 million dedicated for that. I don't remember exactly what it was.
I think you've got some money where West 8th Street meets the loop as well.
Yes, West 8th. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes.
Yep. On your screen, I've just shown you the alignment for I-14 coming in here. It's on the right side of the page. If you want to look at the left, that's where I-27 and I-14 comes into the Midland side from the southeast. carries on down I-20, but there's another piece. I-14 is in two pieces. The southern piece is going to tie in to Odessa from along US 385. So that'll be upgraded to an interstate too. That's not a tomorrow project. In fact, that's not even in the 10-year window. TxDOT's got to do all their work. The funding has to be available to stick it in the 10-year window. But that's the overall objective. Get it in the 10-year window, and then we can figure out how we can get it into the 4-year window and build it.
What highway system will I-27 tap into at the north?
It'll go around the east side of Midland, or the Craddock Highway, and tie into 349.
Oh, okay.
Going due north from there. Of
But
course,
then you go as far north as Amarillo to I-40 or what? That's
yes, it actually goes all the way to the Canadian border.
what- Oh, wow.
It's a very massive highway. And more than 900 miles of it is in Texas.
What's the timing of the I-27 project?
Well, nothing is in the plan for through 2034. So it might come up in 2035. It's not entirely a decision by the MPO, but there are some pieces that are going to be constructed sort of along the path, so that when the longer strips of the corridor, the interchanges will already be done. TxDOT's already dealing with 1788 where it ties into I-20. That's a major one right there. I have not seen the design, and just TxDOT does their design work and lets the project. They don't typically come show the board what the design looks like. Sometimes it's nice to envision what it could be, but we try to show the board what a typical interchange looks like and assume generally that's going to be the way it looks when it's on the ground. But we got a lot of money that we've shown in the plan, and I'll tell you that TxDOT told us, and they told the board, we can't move on 27 or 14 till it's in the plan, because TxDOT has sole authority of the rural area that they handle. Crane, Lamesa, Andrews. They don't have sole authority inside the metropolitan boundary. That's where Steve Thompson and others come into play, because they have to have the decision by the MPO policy board on where to program that money. Then they can start running. So, because just imagine this, if there's an alignment for I-27 and you get to the MPO boundary, and now all of a sudden the board doesn't agree with the alignment, and TxDOT's already said it, now what do you got? You're going to have Bedlam trying to fix it and come up with another study to figure out where the alignment ought to be. So we work collectively with them, TxDOT that is, and the board to move these things along. So to answer your question directly, Mayor, I don't see anything before 2035. But we keep a running dialogue going with TxDOT on these things. And let me say this, and I say this to you because 27 and 14 are new. I mean, they were a pipe dream 2 years ago. Now they've been approved by Congress. Congress doesn't dedicate funding to it. Congress says you can build this. Texas can manage it and build it out as an interstate because we approve it. Well, there's no money with it, no check, nothing. So that's why we had to prove in the plan that at the rate that I told you about, plus or minus $90 million a year, we can afford to pay for some of these interstate pieces, because they run at $100 million a pop, you know. So, so I'm not giving you sort of an excuse. The 10 years was pretty much already set by TxDOT. Now we've said we want to do these things. It's got to be beyond the 10 years because the money isn't there. Glenn Hagar will tell you that. TxDOT will tell you that. I'll tell you that. The money isn't there. over time it will be there, and then we can do these things.
So I had a question on the 4-year stuff. You did mention 42nd. Is that something that'll happen in 4 years, or?
42nd, I apologize, is just outside that 4-year window. It should take place anytime after 27, excuse me, not, we're in the period right now of 23 through 26. We just approved 25 through 28, and let me see if it's on another map. Okay, these, what you're showing on the screen and up here on the big screen is the 10-year list. And you can see the green line is 42nd Street going from loop to loop. It is not, however, in the 4-year window. The southern kind of green triangle looking thing there at 338, that is in the 4-year list. And a piece of I-20 is in the 4-year list too.
So I think you were here, Craig, when he mentioned that there's gonna be medians, like University, is what TxDOT's planning, to slow down the traffic.
And that's all?
That's all we've seen.
Right, they've
You've got turnings and turn-ons, there's nothing else you can do with it.
you know, they've got a goal zero fatalities by 2050, and they want to reach half of that by 2035. It's a very, very big goal. So they're aggressive about safety, and 42nd Street unfortunately is not a safe road. So the money's already available for it. I believe TxDOT's just got to finish the design work before they can put it into that 4-year window. And I'll tell you too, TxDOT doesn't do the design work. Well, yes, they do. Let me stop myself there. But they don't do it in a vacuum. They're going to come out and handle public hearings. You'll have input. Anybody affected by the proposed project will have input. They don't come out and say, "Here's what we're doing. Start tomorrow." It's a pretty good process for public involvement. I thank you very much for this opportunity. If there is another question, I'll address it. But this is great to talk to you, frankly, about what's going on around here. And there's a lot of activity. You know that. Both communities are growing like weeds. It's a blessing. I say it is.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Mayor.
All right.
Thanks, Cameron.
Moving on to agenda item 4, point-in-time homeless count update from Andrea Quiros.
Good afternoon. First of all, I gotta thank y'all. We are truly grateful to be on the agenda today. It's been a long time since we've been able to present to our leaders, but mostly this count was a success on getting a good, accurate count because of the city involvement. We had the Odessa Police Department, we had geointelligence, we've had the code enforcers, Naira and Tammy, everyone from the city came up and helped us out, and they actually went out to the encampments, outside encampments, and of course, Greg, you'll hear from him later on as well, but they all went to the encampments with us, so it was great, so we really appreciate this. I want to go back a little bit about the history, because y'all are new up here, and I don't think y'all know the history of the Homeless Coalition. It's been over 25 years that the point in time homeless count has been happening in our community and used to be conducted by the Community Development Department. Back then, Michael Marrero, Salvation Army, and United Way got together and said, we need to find out what is needed in our community. So they started the Homeless Coalition. And so the PIT count is very important for our community, and so is the consolidated plan, because in order for you to get grant money from HUD, which is CDBG, and our rapid rehousing funding, you have to have these components on part to get funding. And so Odessa Links came around in 2002, and we had a software called HMIS, Homeless Management Information System. So we were able to enter everybody that came in through our doors, homeless or just with information. So we were able to collect the data. So we were invited into this small coalition, and we were asked to be the lead agency for Odessa, the city of Odessa. So we became the lead agency for the Odessa Homeless Coalition back in 2003. Since then, we have been working, trying to get funding on our own. We hired grant writers. We did everything we could to get funding, but it was hard for us to get any big funding in our community due to competing with metropolitan areas. We would miss it by 1 point, so God, we were almost there. Texas Homeless Network, about 18 years ago, they planted the seed, and they said it's not fair for our rural communities. So they came to visit everyone, and we decided to partner with them. So we would write the grant application, our part of the application together, and they would write it for all the rural areas. In 2012, we were granted $750,000 for the first time for Project Hope for rapid rehousing. And that only came because the community came together, 70 nonprofit organizations, government agencies, community leaders in the community. We came together for a week, and we did an assessment to see what was the need. And homeless families was the number one. And that's when we came up with Project Hope. 2013, we got the funding, we're excited, we started the program, and that became a program underneath Odessa Links. Rewinding here this time, this is my third time back with the organization. I was the first director, I came in the middle of it, doing that grant, and I was retired, I was already home. But then I keep on driving around the streets, and something still needs to be done. We still have this problem, it's not changed. It's from our elderly, it's from mental health, it's anything you can think of, and we need to do something about it. And as long as I have the strength and be able to have and continue to educate our community, I think all of us together, we can do something to get started on helping out. So the first thing I did after 2 years of finding out everything that's going on my third year, I needed funding. We needed to hire a homeless coalition coordinator. I couldn't wear that hat too, besides everything else I did. We really need to go out to the encampments. We need to go out to the streets and visit our homeless neighbors to see what's going on. What do we need to do? I'm not one to say, let's spend $1 million and let's build this and nobody comes. We need to really see, as it is Project Hope, I use scattered sites. I used apartment complexes and landlords instead of spending money on building a big shelter. We use what we have already, and that's the way I was brought up. And that's the way I feel that we need to see how we can help whatever resources we have. So I fundraised and came up with the funding, and I hired the perfect person. He is passionate about everything that we have going on. I believe the success of this count, higher numbers don't mean nothing. That means we just have more work and more people to help out. I always say the pit count is a homeless count, but there's a person behind that count. What can we do with that person to be able to help them out? I strongly believe everybody needs to be housed. I don't care what you're going through. Everybody needs shelter. And so to discuss the pit count numbers, I'm going to turn it over to the expert.
There was, somebody said that they were standing behind and somebody was introducing them. They were saying a bunch of nice things. And they said, well, I really don't feel comfortable coming up now because that's a lot of things to say. But nonetheless, I just want to thank Andrea for the opportunity of sharing and being part of the organization. My name is Jesus Gomez. I am a local. I moved here in 2022 and have been working, investing myself in the community and figuring out ways of how I can be change to our community for the betterment. So part of the PIT numbers is, just want to give you a synopsis of the PIT numbers. There you go. So the total number of the homeless count was actually 212 counted. Now, I do want to address the pit count in its entirety, what it is, why we do it. And so the pit count is a 24-hour snapshot where we basically everybody in Texas that does the pit count has 24 hours from the moment the clock hits to 11:59 p.m. that night, so we can count every single person that is suffering any type of unshelteredness. Is it an emergency shelter, domestic violence shelter, or any type of shelter that is really giving them assistance for homelessness? And so we have a 24-hour snapshot during that time. The reason why we do it is because it gives us also the opportunity to understand the needs in our community, the demographics of who is being affected, who is suffering these circumstances. And at times also during the conversation, it also gives us the opportunity to understand a history or the story of the individual person. One of the things that I value much of what Andrea mentions is she's always saying it's not about the numbers, it's about the people. And it's very true, because as we go out and engage with every person, we can understand a different story of every person, of what happened and what led them to there. I will say that, in past experience, I think in my younger days, watching television and probably movies, I identified or had a stereotype towards homelessness of crazy addicts and all kinds of situations, which were really frowned upon, and it was negative connotation to what the people were really experiencing. But some of the people that we are engaging with are coherent, and that they just had a bad situation. No insurance for their house, and a storm goes through, blows their roof off, and now they don't have a house. Somebody is going through a divorce, and now they don't have a way to pay for the means of being able to live. And so there's so many of those situations. The other thing is, I do want to also shed some light on the total number of sheltered versus the unsheltered. This year, we did have a higher number on our sheltered homeless count, and that was actually mostly caused because of the inclement weather. And so because of the temperatures that we were experiencing during that week, both THN and us, we were keeping a watch on what the temperatures were going to be, where we're going to have moisture, slippy roads, things like that. And THN was also sending messages, hey, if there's ice on the road, if there's any type of moisture, we want to make sure that volunteers and everybody is safe. So we will send an announcement as things progress. And fortunately, we were able to go out. We were able to go out with burritos, coffee, blankets, hand warmers, basically a bag of goodies for our unsheltered community. But I do want to shed some light on in regards to that, because the 126 was a compilation of 34 additional unsheltered that were staying at the Salvation Army in their overflow at the gym. And so because of the inclement weather, the Salvation Army opens up their gymnasium whenever the temperature is 42 degrees and below, to be able to provide a place of warmth for those that are suffering unshelteredness. And so the Salvation Army has an occupancy limit of about 45 people. That is 22 men beds, 11 women beds, and 12 beds for 2 families, basically 2 family rooms where they can house a total of 12 people. And so ultimately the goal, the occupancy for the Salvation Army is limited to only 45. And what happened is that they had to open up the gymnasium so they can shelter more people through cots, so that way they can stay away from the inclement weather, and we don't have any people freezing to death outside in 12 and degree weather. So that really brought up our numbers from 86 unsheltered to approximately 133 unsheltered neighbors. And so that was the total number of how the pit count was. this last, I believe, a couple of weeks ago, we were able to make a trip to Austin to advocate for our community in regards to the impact of the homelessness in our community. And so not only were we able to go to advocate at the Capitol, but we also were able to visit San Antonio and see what programs they had, what shelters they had. And so it was a great experience, not just because I was away from the office, but because I was able to see a different perspective, different programs, different approach, and also different needs that maybe we can borrow or somehow imitate from them, so we can bring to our community. And while we may not have the same funding or the same amount of people that are experiencing unshelteredness, we can still glean from that and say, what can we do in our community to be able to support those that are experiencing unshelteredness? I do want to thank Councilman Connell for going with us. It was a great experience, and he was able to not only just go with us, but it was really enriching for Oscar and myself to be able to share with him and experience like his perspective and everything that he had to present for us to be able to also serve our community. And so
We got to move into Senator Sparks' office and talk with his representatives on a number of bills that were going through the House at the time, mostly all favorable, but it was a unique opportunity.
Yep, absolutely. We did have the opportunity to have an appointment in Senator Sparks' office to advocate for certain bills that will advocate for the homeless, and not only for the homeless, but also for organizations that are supporting that, so that we can be able to move forward and help people come out of that circumstance and to be able to take a step forward. The other thing is that we did visit one of the biggest shelters in San Antonio, Haven for Hope. I mean, the Disneyland for homeless is what Andrea calls it, which is really an all-around wraparound service organization for the city of San Antonio. We also were able to visit Sam Ministries, which they take on abandoned hotels or hotels that are going to be closed down and provide shelter and wraparound services for the homeless as well. And so from all those experiences, we were able to come back and start kind of mapping out what the future of Odessa Links looks like and how we can bring that to the community and be able to do a joint effort. One of the things that I did notice through San Antonio is that both the city and all the advocates for homelessness share a network of of service information, where if they go to Catholic Charities, Odessa Links, or Salvation Army, then they can look up, they can enter that information of the person experiencing homelessness or whatever circumstance, whatever service they render to them, then it'll create a map of who has helped. And so one of the things that San Antonio advocates mentioned was that it took the effort of both the local agencies and the city to be able to cooperate, to come together and do something like that. So
Fantastic. Any questions?
And I'm sorry, did you say what that was called?
they used HMIS, and so
Okay.
they do use HMIS. What we use HMIS, however, there's different HMISs, programmed by different programmers, and so, but ours, the one we use is directly through THN to comply with what we're doing with THN in partnership with them.
The homeless management information is just
Yeah.
the data, but that's what we're looking for right now. Because I feel that in order for us to continue to move forward, we need to have a day center. We need, and everybody helps. Okay, I'm gonna pay your rent, I'm gonna do this, but there's no case management. And with Project Hope, knowing that we're doing case managing, then, okay, you need ID, there's no addresses. If you're out in the street and somebody stole your identification, they can provide a driver's license. So they can provide an address, so they can't get a driver's license. So with a day center in our community with wraparound services, we can use that address. We can have everything they need. The organization's resources come to the day center to help them there, because what else is another issue? Transportation. They're not going to leave their stuff in the encampments and leave their encampments to come and get assistance. So therefore, we provide everything for them in this day center. Everybody comes to them using the HMIS system. Catholic Charities comes in, logs in, all their information is there. How am I going to serve them? And then, and that'll help everybody there. And it doesn't just have to be homeless. That could be anybody. You know, originally when we became the information referral, we still have that capacity in our organization. So it would be helpful for everyone. I've been seeing that. Oh, here's a blanket. Here's hygiene products. Here's food, which is great. But who's case managing them to get out of that system, to get out of that area, you know, in that situation.
Andrea and Jesus, first of all, let me thank you both for what work you're doing, and I want to compliment your servant's heart. I think you all are doing a wonderful job. Let me ask you this. The 221 that you identified, do you go as far as finding out if these people, 212, are they transients that have just come here, or we have local people that have become homeless and that kind of thing?
We
So
have
all that
chronic
is part of
homeless.
your information that you gather?
Right, so part of the PIT count, there's a questionnaire. It's not just going and counting people, but we have a questionnaire, an objective questionnaire that we discuss with them, and then they just explain to us what happened. It's almost like a 5-10 minute interaction. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it does become lengthy. Some people, you know, they've been in a tent for years, and they don't talk to anybody other than their dog, or you know, some people that just brush them off or whatnot. So to answer your question objectively, we do see both of what you're saying. There is transients, and there's also people that just simply had bad, we'll call it luck, and so a bad situation, and were unfortunately find themselves homeless.
If you look at the report on the chronically homeless, those 24 is about right. Those are the ones that have been homeless over 2 years, and they're just they're at the library, they're in the encampments. They don't make enough money to live anywhere. They're on Social Security, and they only get $1,200. They have to pay for Medicare. They have to pay for their prescriptions. They can't pay for rent and utilities. So they have no choice but to stay out in the streets. And if they have mental issues, they don't have the money to get the medication, they don't have the transportation because they have an encampment, so they don't want to leave their stuff, so they don't go get the assistance that they need. People go and feed them there. And if they do together, somebody will stay if they have a group of encampments which they went to, somebody will stay there to look over their stuff while they go eat and bring that person back something to eat. So that's the sad thing about it. And we went in depth yesterday I'm glad that y'all hired someone for CDBG, a consultant, because that's the thing. Our seniors, they're getting evicted. There's not enough housing.
They're living in RVs.
They're living in RVs, and it's not a good place for them to stay. And they're having to choose whether to, you know, pay utilities or get medication, or you know,
or eat.
Or eat. Yeah, thank God for the Meals on Wheels. You know, so those are the chronic homeless. And then so we try to do what is it? What I call it?
A pilot.
A pilot. Try to do a pilot. I try to help some of them. I housed someone, a 24-year-old that has been homeless for a year. Got him an apartment. We got him a job. It took him 2 to 3 months to get his mind away from being in the streets into living into an apartment and having that responsibility.
You know, it's really challenging for some of them because they have to go from a survival mode to a self-care mode. And so where they're always on the defense instead of problem solving. And so how do I now, in addition, some of the people that are chronically homeless, the programs that most of the time are offered are self-sufficiency. Like, how can we help you get a job? How can we build capacity? Can we get you an education? What services can we provide you? What networks do we have to create? And some of them are at a point where they can't do any of that. And so those are tough situations that sometimes we encounter. Aside from that, to add to your question, Councilman Vasquez, is that when after the pit count, we did paper surveys, and so we did document a lot of the information of the people experiencing homelessness. And so we go back and we go through them, and if there's a phone number that we can contact them, then we'll reach out. Hey, how's it going? Were you able to get your Social Security through Salvation Army? Get your ID in Midland, and so on and so forth. And so we can mitigate some issues. Right now, one of the things that I'm piloting is a qualitative and quantitative survey, so that way we can determine what are the needs of this community. And when I mean this community, I mean the unsheltered. And so that way we can figure out, okay, what do they feel that they need? Because we can tell them what they need all day long, but it really comes down to them telling us what they need.
So let me ask something real quick.
I'm done. Thank you.
You just said unsheltered, but at one point, Andrea, you said that this did include people in, you said shelters, crisis center.
Yes. Yes, a lot of the big number on this is combined, but the number on our sheltered, our crisis center, which we work very closely with, the crisis center houses 61 people altogether, so I think they have 18 rooms, but they can house only up to 61 people, and they're full all the time. But we work real good together. They have them for 3 to 4 months, so they help them get their documents, they help them get the job. They don't need a job to get into our Project Hope program for the families, but they do because they have to pay for all the deposits. I pay for the rent and everything else, but the client has to pay for the deposits because the utility companies keep my credit card and they keep on using it to pay the bills. It's hard for me to remove my credit card information if I help them with the deposits. But either way, they still need a startup. They still, when they move in, they have nothing. We help them with beds. We help them with move-in items. We also have another agency that helps out, is Family Promise, but they only have 3 rooms. And then Salvation Army has 2. Those are the only shelters, emergency shelters. That's only 3 months to 5 to 6 months, depending on their situation. And what do they do after that? We could only house 25 adults with families at a time. So I'm blessed. We've been working, my board, and we've been working hard with grants. We had a successful fundraising. We finally, with that fundraiser, I was able to house a 4-bedroom, a family of 6. We have 3 families of 9, and we have a family of 12 that we have nowhere to house them. Shelters can't hold them. They're staying in the streets. They're staying in the hotels, wherever can pay for the hotels. They're staying in their cars. They have nowhere to go. So we have, from emergency shelter to transitional, which is rapid rehousing to us, to permanent housing. I mean, from kids that are 19 years old and expecting, they have nowhere to go, to families, to seniors. So we see it all.
So does that, and coming from food to kids, I've kind of got the 6 categories that ECISD does. And, now Meals on Wheels, I've got, my one route on 2nd Street, I've got at least 5 of them living in the hotels. So if you were truly looking at, those categories like ECISD does, that 212 is very low.
That's not, it's very low. And that's the thing, we can't count the school numbers.
Well, no.
Because
I mean like that.
Oh, yeah,
when
no.
When you're looking at folks that are living in RVs, hotels,
West
multiple
Odessa
families in a home, You know, those categories, you're
Oh,
off
yeah,
chart.
yeah.
But
Yeah, no, I mean, we can't count, and that's the thing, the qualifications for our program, the families, is they can't double up with anybody. The HUD does not qualify them as homeless. They literally have to be in the street, come from a shelter, stay at a hotel, and they can't pay for the hotel. Somebody else has to pay for the hotel. And then an agency is the only way, so.
I just have one question. What do you think the council count, the total count, what is the count for the city of Odessa for homelessness?
We have,
Because I see different
120
numbers. What do you think,
126.
1,000?
Midland was a little higher than that.
Midland was a little higher, but they were lower than last year, only because Midland has more shelters. Their shelter count was higher, but they have like 4 more
Well, I'm
shelters than
just,
we
I
do.
know Council Conable goes out on the street.
Yeah.
What do you think we got out on the street that's just homeless?
More than 126.
Right.
Yeah, well, that's what I kind of thought.
But there's just one thing, just to kind of wrap this up. It's encouraging to me that we have community development. We also have Odessa Links. They're working on this problem. You know, we need to support them for what they're doing. We have Oscar and Jesus are also been added in to get things going. They're just really remarkable people, and they care for our homeless. So,
good job.
what they're doing.
Thank y'all so much.
Hey, Susan, Andrea, thank y'all very much for attending this meeting.
Thank you very much. Inviting us.
All right, let's move on to agenda item 5, the update on the upcoming water line replacement under the water and wastewater job order. Alex.
Good afternoon. The Utilities Department wanted to just give you a quick update on our utility job order contract. Mr. Mitchell, you might be excited about this one.
Yeah, give me some good news.
We are going
All the
to,
water's coming to District 1.
we're going to do a small water line replacement right at May Street. I know we had an issue with this last year. We had 3 line breaks.
Big issue over there.
We had 3 line breaks on this, so this is our next water line replacement that we're going to do here shortly. This is the project overview. That's the existing conditions. So we are going to replace the cast iron line that is there with PVC. And that's just a short, quick little overview of it. And then this is the cost of it. We expect it to last anywhere from 5 to 6 weeks. So during that, everybody will still be serviced, still have water. We will switch everything over. I just kind of wanted to bring it to council just to let everybody know we're currently in District 5 working on a sewer line replacement at Bookings and University. So this will be our next water line replacement. So there's 25 services, 3 connections, 2 new valves will be replaced. And then other than that, that's kind of where we're at. Does anybody have any questions? Just kind of wanted to.
We were about through with the Crane Street. Did they finish it up?
I need you to elaborate. What do you mean by
Crane or they?
So we still have the road construction to still
Yeah, but
be
the
done.
water line-
we are on the north side.
Okay.
We're getting very close. Yes, sir.
All right.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions? Alex, thanks a lot for that. We
Absolutely.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
We're going to discuss item 6 in, I think, council meeting. Let's go to item 7. Kaylee, the President of the City of Odessa, January 2025 Investment Report.
Good afternoon. I'll make this pretty quick. Save time for questions if y'all have any. So we have finally caught up with our investment reports. We do them monthly, quarterly. We are supposed to present them to you just to let you guys know where we're at. I do serve as the city's investment officer. It's best practice to have at least 2. As the investment officer, we're required by the Texas Public Finance Investment Act to have training and stay up to date on regulations. We are very regulated as far as what we can put our money in as a government. And so just as an FYI, our investment philosophy, and this comes from our investment policy, which we'll also be presenting to you at a later date. The primary objectives of our investment policy are safety, ensuring the safety of our principal and capital, liquidity, making sure that we have access to our funds as we need them in alignment with our anticipated cash outflows, public trust, as is the case with everything we do, transparency and public trust, and then return on investments, making sure that we're investing these in a strategic way that will maximize our ROIs. So this is our summary. You do have the report in your packets. So I'm going to follow more along with the report. I put this up here for our audience members to follow along with us. So the first page of your report is a summary. You'll see that we started, this is as of January 31, so we started the calendar year with $491,952,947. As we go through this, you'll see where those funds are housed, the different accounts that we have, that we manage, all of those things. And we did end the month of January with $498,171,793. I'll flip to the next page, which is just the beginning of the reporting period. So this is where you can start to see the breakout of where we have all of our funds. From this summary, our audience members can see that the large majority of our funds are housed in government pools. So we house our money in Tex Pool, which is the largest government pool agency. They're overseen by the state comptroller, so they're the biggest player in the game. We have about 75% of our pooled funds within Tex Pool. We also utilize Techstar and Logic. Now these pools are mandated to maintain a dollar for dollar match by the Public Investment Act. And so they're very safe. All of the investments that they make on our behalf with the funds that we place in these pools are all AAA rated, and they all meet the criteria that our own investment policy mandates. So in addition to the government pools, which you'll see there, we have some CDs, a couple, one at West Texas National Bank and one at First Bank and Trust. The maturity dates there should say 2025, so I apologize about that, but we have one coming up for maturity at the end of April. I have been doing some research on CD rates across local banks just to see where kind of the best rate is that we can place those funds. And it may be West Texas National. They tend to offer pretty competitive CD rates. In addition to that, we have some money markets and savings accounts. And that column that says net yield to maturity is the rate for those accounts. So that's where we started. Along on the next page, you'll see the end of the month. So just, quick note, FYI, if you look at the same net yield to maturity column, you will see a slight decline in the interest rates. I guess depending on which economist you listen to on a daily basis, there's a lot of fluctuation happening in the market, but the consensus is that the Fed is going to lower rates at some point this year. So right now and over the last year and a half, our Tex Pool and our Techstar and Logic, which usually pays a little bit higher than the other two, they have treated us well. But now as we enter into a stage in our economy where we might see interest rates dropping, not sure at what level or speed, it'll be important for us to start investing more of our monies into actual securities, so buying bonds and agencies and things like that. You'll see from your summary that we do not have any investments currently. They have all matured. So that will change. The key to maximizing our ROI when it comes to buying those kinds of things is going to be mapping out a adequate cash outflow need. It's a little bit complex because the city has a lot of outflows, different projects, different operating expenses, but it's our duty as a finance department to make sure that we capture those and map out a cash flow ladder accordingly so that we can start investing in some securities. So on the next page, the investment summary, you'll see what I just showed everybody. So that's on your last page there. And then also just kind of a visual representation of where all of our monies are. Like I said, the pools house the large majority of our funds. And that will change as we start buying some agencies. So that's all I have prepared for you. Like I said, we will report this quarterly, and you'll start to see some of these numbers shift around as we make our investment selections.
Thank you. Do you have any questions? Okay, thank you
Okay,
very much. We
thank you.
appreciate your time. We're on item number 8, discuss and consider the approval of a newly drafted food truck. Councilman Stoker.
That's me. All right, well, this is something that we have worked on, Councilmember Mitchell and legal, Omar with the fire marshal. The county has been in on the meetings, and Mr. Morton has helped us kind of navigate all this. I appreciate everybody's work on this. But we went through the old ordinance and really decided that the best thing to do was to make it as easy as possible. And since the county is in charge of regulating the health and safety of the trucks, leave that up to the county, and the fire marshals are in charge of making sure the things are safe to operate, leave that up to the fire marshal, and the city will keep it as simple as it can be. So the presentation that they have come up with, this talks about some of the changes that were made in the ordinance. The old ordinance had a limit of 50. Visiting with the county has a limit of 25. She said, but right now they've got almost 200 that they've permitted in the county, so they don't follow their limit. The application process, the application was 14 pages long. Now, most of that was information. We got that down to 4 pages. We're working with, I saw Shaughnessy out there earlier, but we want all this on MGO. We want it all to be online. You want, again, as easy as possible. Their fee is going to be combined, so now it's one fee instead of 2. It's a $300 fee. We didn't lower the fee for anything. We did create a single event permit. There were cases where, maybe I only want to work at the fair or the farmer's market. So instead of having to do the $300 thing, you could do one $50 thing, or maybe you just wanted to try. And so we created that at $50 a pop. Any of the city events, Fandango, the Light Parade, those kinds of things, the city sanctioned events, you don't need the permit. You still have to have the health department and the fire inspection, but you don't have to have the permits. So we kept that the same. Eliminating the redundancy of the health department codes. The existing ordinance had all of that information in there. There wasn't much point. If you passed the health department inspection, come on over. We'll let you do the fire marshal inspection. We're working on in January where health department sets up at the Coliseum. Come on, come all. They drive them all through. Get fire marshals out there to do the same. Again, kind of a one-stop shop for those who want to do that, trying to make it as easy as possible. I didn't know, is there
It's an action item, discuss and consider.
discuss and consider? So,
If they want, you can do what they want to do.
all right. So any questions on that?
Gentlemen, any questions?
For the food trucks, Craig, what would you pinpoint would be the greatest easement for those folks through this new ordinance?
I
The
think right
greatest
now, the daunting task of going through the application, going to the fire marshal and hey, sorry, the signature's in the wrong box. Go back to the county. That notary's in go back here. We heard that a couple of times. We're just getting bounced, pinged back and forth.
Yeah.
Go to PD. Go here. Go pay at billing and collection. So there were a lot of steps in the old application. The fire marshals have been great about. We want to be the one stop. Come to us. We're going to walk you through the whole process. Streamline it. You've gone to the county. Now come to us. We're going to handle all the city part of it, and then go on about it. So to me, that's what I heard from. We hosted a food truck forum last week. I don't know the count that was here, but the room was fairly full of operators, and that was the sentiment. It was just complicated. And they didn't want to be bounced around, and there were instances where, they didn't quite understand, Jim, the hot dog vendor, who has just been, this has been a years-long process of just trying to get figured out, hey, I am operating within the rules, the state accepts me, but there's something in the city code that doesn't. So clearing those things up, kind of removing the hurdles.
Are these food trucks required, is there a special place for them? They can go anywhere they want?
So there are zoning prohibitions. They can't operate in residential areas. They do have to have permission from businesses. If they are at fill-in-the-blank business, they've got to have a notarized permission slip from the business. So they can't just show up and open up wherever they want. There are restrictions on, how much room they can take up. They can't show up and just throw out a bunch of picnic tables and open a restaurant. So they do have to have, there's a limited square footage, if you will, that they can take up, or a limited number of parking spots they can take up. But they do have to have permission from the business owner, and it's actually the building owner. So even deeper than, you can't just show up at Ed and Tom's and open your thing. You'd have to have a notarized letter from Eddie Mitchell.
And I think we got it keyed in to where if you in the city, because the county is different. That's where a lot of them was getting confused.
Yeah.
City, if you got the city permit, you can be in the city. If you in the county, you don't have to have a city permit because you in the county. They got a different rule. So we got a lot of that geared into where people understand what's going on.
But we kept operating hours so they can't, it's not a free-for-all. We kept, after operating hours, they cannot remain in the location. They've got a home base. So once you're closed, you got to go home. You can't set up camp. The county's standpoint is these are self-contained mobile operators, so you've got to be able to pick up and move. So there is not an instance where it's that kind of 24-hour limit that was placed on it, and that came out of the county. We've been approached by a few folks about opening a food truck park and what that looks like. So I think that conversation has started. There are some zoning things we've got to work through. There's some issues, not issues, but points with the fire department about access and the fire truck can't drive into a gravel lot and get stuck. So there's some infrastructure things that we've got to address. But I think the next conversation is zoning because, for example, OC was built to have the food trucks there along Jackson. Well, come to find out, the current code doesn't allow that. And did we address that in this?
I don't believe we did.
So,
But we can go back and add that in.
okay.
I
Because,
don't think they have the electric though. Who was
well,
telling
they
us the other
didn't.
night that
Alexa
they
said they didn't. But
Yeah.
language in this
Yeah.
that will need to be changed, actually, says they can't operate in the right-of-way, which I didn't understand to mean the parking spots along Jackson. So, the ordinance now doesn't even allow the food trucks to park along Jackson at OC to operate. So talking about the sports complex, whenever we get that going and need the food trucks out there, that'll have to change.
I'm just trying to think that we have a spot for those.
Yeah.
We have a designated spot for those.
Well, either way.
All right, guys, any other questions for Mr. Stoker?
Craig, one more. If you, it'd be nice to put it online, like you said, to facilitate the easement on it. What department would be handling that?
So fire marshal.
It would be the fire marshal, okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, so there would be a landing page with all the information about what you
Super-
need, the forms
super
you
sweet.
need. You could print them out. The MGO would handle all the back end, where you file the permits, where you pay the fee, setting up the appointment to get your inspections done. But it would all be handled, the city portion would all be handled by the fire marshal.
Excellent.
And it'll be going through our Director of Communications. Is it gonna be going through Monica's department to be put online? I heard someone.
Well, the building out of the website might, because she does handle all the website, yes.
Okay.
Gentlemen, this would need to be put on a regular agenda then for approval.
Well, it's actually an action item.
Well, I
Discuss
see it
and
says that,
consider.
but I thought we had to have everything in council.
Well, I mean, it's an action item. If you choose to do it, so long as it has consider, that means you can take action. Or you can say, we're gonna wait till April 8th. You can do whatever you wanna do.
Don't you need us to put the zone?
Well, I mean, we can go back, you talking about OC? We can put OC
Where
on
we
it.
do the right-of-way
Yeah,
language.
we can have that.
Yeah, I think we ought to get it, get it right
Yeah.
before we pass it.
Okay.
I'd say,
We'll
yeah,
get
so work on
to
that, and let's put it on the agenda for the
April 8th.
April
Sure.
8th.
We can
Okay,
do it.
thank you, gentlemen.
Yep.
Thank both of y'all for y'all's hard work on that. All right, let's go to agenda item 9, discuss and consider First Friday events. City Manager Morton.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I had a question from a citizen regarding First Friday and the use of the stage, and I had no idea. So I began looking at it and talked to the event coordinators, which are DOI and the Arts Council. I see Randy out here, and asked about the stage, if the stage was part of their organized program, and was told, no, it wasn't. So then I talked to Councilman Haney, because he and his group are the primary users of the stage on First Fridays. And after discussing with him, he indicated to me that the previous council had given direction or authority as a sponsored event to use the stage out there for First Fridays. I looked, Councilman Haney, I haven't found any minutes to that effect. But that said, I thought it best we bring it to council and you tell us if you think the use of the stage for First Fridays with a non-recognized group as not recognized by the event coordinators should be used for this event.
I'll say my first comment about First Friday is, I think it may be the most underutilized event in Odessa. It's a fantastic event. I've started attending probably last summer, and I think it's a fantastic deal. I think I think we have to do a better job of informing citizens, because I've talked to a lot of people who don't know it exists. I think it's fabulous. I really do. I think Randy deserves credit for doing a really exciting event. I'd like to see it grow and expand, personally. So, from an event perspective, I love it. So thanks, Randy, for all the work you do.
Mr. Ham, let me ask you this question. I have a couple of other questions to follow. Is that city stage on Fifth and Grant, right in the parking lot area?
Yes, sir.
Is it there because Odessa Arts requested it?
No, sir. No, we have not requested this stage, nor do we program it.
Okay.
I would like to clarify, we don't have to. The First Friday is an event with two objectives, and that is to create unique entertainment experiences downtown and to drive people into downtown businesses and drive up the revenue of the downtown businesses. That's it. In order to participate in First Friday, you don't need our approval. What we do ask is that anybody that wants to participate in First Friday lets us know so that we can market it. We want everybody to know what's going on and what to expect when you come downtown. So those are really the only things. We try to make the guidelines as efficient as possible so that anyone who has an idea or has something that is either visual arts, music, or theater or literature can participate, as long as they help us accomplish our two goals, and that is to bring people to downtown to experience something and drive up sales.
Okay, so my next question is, City Manager Morton, why is that city stage placed there? Why was it put there?
I think it's requested by Councilmember Haney. My concern with it, if it's not part of the event, then, and it's not a city-sponsored event, then our ordinance says that the stage needs to be paid for, and I've not seen that it's been paid for. So that raised the question, is it out there as a city-sponsored event or not? And that's why we're here today.
Do we have an ordinance addressing that, Mr. Jones?
Yes, sir.
We do.
We do, and the rental fee is $500 for a first 24-hour period, and then it is $150 after that for each additional 24-hour period. But there's a $1,000 rental reservation deposit that you have to pay.
So I guess my final question would be to Mr. Haney. Then you raised your hand when I asked why was it.
Yes, sir. So, one thing is, this city council last year created a, basically, a faith-based ministry from here. From this, for us to reach out. Greg and I took this as we had no guidance from anybody. There was no rules put in place for anything that we were doing. We were just like, so what are we supposed to do? So we went after, got pastors involved. We got everybody that we could think of to give us some kind of guidance on what they wanted. So it started when we just first started doing blankets for the homeless. We started doing other stuff with this ministry. And as this ministry grew to grow, getting blankets in, we started handing out Bibles to the homeless. We started doing a lot of different stuff. We brought in groups to come help us to make something for a family down there. But when all of this is happening, we had homeless show up. We fed the homeless while they're there. We feed them every time they're out there. We don't push anybody away. We feed people. We help, believe it or not, we help the drug addicts. We help even those who are a little bit obliviated out there. And so with this, we decided that, hey, why don't we add music so that we could bring families into here? So what we did was we just bought the stage out there for a place for them to set up. This is not a religious group. It's not one group. We've had rappers out there. We've had Jewish people blowing their horns. We've done everything to get everybody involved in this. So what we did was we decided that, hey, we're going to grow this with them. We bring in bands in to play. We don't charge anything. We pay for the bands. We bring them. We pay for the Bibles. We, as in me and Greg. We do all of this. We don't come to the city and say, will you give us some money? We don't do all of that. So setting the stage up, we did it 6 times last year, and we did it 1 time this year already. And so with this, we attract about 200 people down there. While we're attracting this, we're helping them go to the restaurants. They're asking us where to eat. We're meeting guys with single dads, all of this, with their kids, asking us to recommend some place for them to eat. There's all kinds of stuff going on. We were just about to start a face painting out there to go with this. But because it went right in hand with what they were doing down there, because music is an art, we just added to this. Now, because we're not asking for money. We've never asked this city for a dime. We've never asked anything. We bought the stage in. So that, to me, is what the city stage was bought and paid for, to be used in this city for different events. This stays in downtown Odessa. It doesn't move. It's cleaned up after it's done. We use it for one night and we move on. This is what we were asked to do as a faith-based ministry, is to bring something into downtown so that we could do something good for this city, which is like you guys going out picking up trash the other day. These Bibles right here, we spend over $5,000 a month on Bibles. And if we're just trying to reach out to the community and do. When I got elected, nobody told me that I'm supposed to work everywhere in this city and do everything that we're supposed to, till we sit here on this thing and I have to vote for his area, I have to vote for his. So what we've done is we're taking ourselves out there and presenting ourselves in a good manner to the population and giving them something that nobody's charging them for.
I always saw it as a cool alternative to First Friday, another little social thing to attract different people. You know, that's how I previewed it myself.
And so we started just, other churches started showing up and other people just started showing up. And so we figured we're building up their business downtown, even if we're spending our own money down there too. We don't just exclude, we go and spend. So there's things that we've done here, and we're just wanting to add another layer to what First Friday stands for, which is arts. It doesn't matter if it's Christian music, whatever music it is. We're offering alternatives down there, and we're bringing people into the city down there. So to me, I'm doing what you guys ask us to do as a faith-based, or we're working with the community. We're trying to, I've hauled 3 truckloads. I'm talking about full truckloads of blankets and food to the homeless shelters here this whole winter. People just kept calling and saying, hey, I got food, I got this. So for me and Greg and everybody sitting up here, that looks good for what we're supposed to do, is serve this community the way we're supposed to serve it, not just at this council. I want to give back something, and that's why we've never asked for a dime. We won't ask for a dime. That's not what we're here to do. We're here to give a blessing back to the city. In 1953, C.S. Lewis put a blue dot on Odessa, Texas, but he also did 10 other cities, that this was going to be the light on the hill for people to come to. And if you look around, there's 3 cap rocks surrounding this place. You have to be up on top of the hill. So we are the light. And if we don't start acting like we're the light, then we're going to lose everybody. And so that just kind of goes hand in hand with what we're doing. Now, I don't feel like that as a city councilman and as a taxpayer, I paid for this stage. We're using this. The city sets it up. The city does this with us. They come and get it on Monday morning and they take it back. It's and like I said, it's just a one-time deal, but we do advertise it through our own communications when we do this. So the other things that we do too, every Friday morning, downtown Odessa, down on Grant Street, we do a men's Bible study down there too. So all of this, we're trying to give back into our community more than what we're getting out of this. And so that's where this is at. And I feel that this stage is because it says City of Odessa. Well, guess what? Everybody that's down there is the City of Odessa. And this is great advertisement for the City of Odessa that it is there participating in this. So, and everybody's welcome. We're not excluding everybody. You know, we pay for the bands, we do what we're supposed to, we bring them in. It's not one church, there's multiple churches. My church is not involved. I go to Odessa Christian Faith, and it's not involved in this. So I had that thrown in my face that that's your church event. And that's not my church event. It is a community event. So that's where I'm sitting. I could read you this 3 or 4 pages I wrote up, but I'm not. So I just want to fight. But these are the Bibles that we give out. We even do, we have kids' Bibles too for the high school kids. We give out those too.
English and Spanish.
English and Spanish, we do not. And then we have Spanish and English music. We don't discriminate. So we don't have German.
So Mayor,
Sorry.
the problem I have with what's going on, and he just said it, and I appreciate what they're doing from a religious perspective, but when the city of Odessa stage is sitting there, I guess the point I disagree with is that we're pushing religion, city of Odessa's name's up there, so it appears as if the city of Odessa is endorsing whatever it is y'all are doing down there. And I don't think that's our job at the city council. There's a separation of church and state, and I think you're pushing people down there away a little bit. I've had complaints about people being somebody trying to hand them a Bible and then talking to them about they can smell alcohol in their breath and they shouldn't be drinking and all this kind of stuff. So it's turning into something that could be ugly down the road. People shouldn't have to worry about going and eating dinner downtown, having a drink or two, walking out, and then have somebody tell them that they shouldn't be drinking. So there's a lot of different things that happen that you may or may not be aware of, but it gives the propriety that the city of Odessa's endorsing this. We have an ordinance concerning that stage and how it's to be used. This council, best of my memory, and I'm old and you're old, but I don't remember any such discussion whatsoever. Now you and the ex-mayor and a couple other city councilmen may have had that conversation, but you sure didn't have it with me, and I don't think you had it with Mr. Vasquez. And and then we've got an ordinance about paying for that stage, and unless it's a city-sponsored event, and it's not, so we're violating our own ordinance. And so there's lots of problems with it. I think it's wonderful what you guys do. You believe in your faith and doing what you're doing, and I commend you for it. It's wonderful. But not from this dais. I don't think it's appropriate at all from this dais.
What I do remember, Councilman Thompson, is what Councilman Haney brought up. I remember when there was a meeting where a faith-based committee from within the council members, maybe that's where the city sponsorship, because you two gentlemen agreed to be.
We were actually voluntold.
Voluntold.
Council.
Okay, but I guess the issue with me, when I've heard about all this and some of the background was that we had an ordinance where if anybody uses it for whatever reasons they use it for, they are to pay $500 for using it. And then that, I guess you gentlemen were using it or allowing it to be used and no one was paying for that fee. That's where I have my issue. What you're doing, I'll be out there with you. What you're doing is great. It's the idea of the usage of a city property that requires, according to ordinance, payment. And it's been used, what, 2 or 3 times maybe? And there's no payment. Who is in charge of the department that authorizes when someone asks to rent that stage? Who's in charge of that?
The Parks Department.
The Parks Department. So, John, you were, huh?
Not him. This was the old, before you start blaming him, this was.
No, I'm not blaming him. I was gonna ask a question.
John is, again, I had a question. I looked at it, I investigated it. I brought John in. We talked about the ordinance. The ordinance talks about exempt organizations. Exempt organizations are clearly outlined in the ordinance for the use of the stage. Okay. And they get it, exempt organizations get it for $400. But it specifically says religious uses are non-exempt. So they're to pay $500.
Sir, Councilman
Okay,
Haney.
so I just want to remind you guys that that we have this stage set up and that we sponsor Christmas. And I believe that is a Christian holiday, and you're over here telling me that we separate church and state, and so I take it that we're gonna cancel Christmas this year, the lights, all of that, because that's not what we're here to support as a city. Then we need to pull all of our money back out of it. That's what you're telling me here, that as council members and as a organization that was appointed from this dais up here, that we cannot use the stage unless we rent it. So, but separation of church and state, I'm gonna bring this up one more time. Guys, you're gonna cancel Christmas because you need to separate the two. This council, this city, all of it. No lights going up, nothing going up. That's Christmas. And I believe that is a Christian holiday.
And there's another tradition we have on our 6 o'clock item, number 3. We have an invocation tonight with Pastor Steve Moss on our agenda. Separation of state.
What happened?
I guess Councilman, the difference is,
There's no difference.
yeah, there's a lot of difference.
One's Christmas and one's not.
No, it's the
I
way
think
it's.
we need to discuss this in private,
We can't.
so we can say what we really want to say.
I-
I don't want them to hear what I got to say. I didn't join the council to discuss the Bible. I joined the council, or I got out there and got my vote so we could help the city. Of course, we need prayer, but we got to go by the guidelines. The guidelines say rent the trailer. That's what we need to do, rent the trailer. It don't matter who it is. We don't need to call John. We need to call Mr. Morton and say, hey, I need the trailer this week. I need to put my deposit down. That's what we need to do. There's a guideline to use the trailer. Let's use the guideline. That's the bottom line. They don't make a call to bring me the trailer. Mr. Morton, I need to give you a deposit. We need to use the trailer for First Friday. That's what the guideline is, right? Okay, it don't say bring it out because I want it out. It says put a deposit down so we can use the trailer. That's what it says.
I was responding to the separation of church and state.
Well, once you rent it, you can do what you want to do.
No, sir, that's not the reference that I was making. I was making a reference to our city councilman over here who
Yeah.
said that we need to separate church and state. And I'm reminding him, if that's the case, let's separate Christmas from this city.
I don't
there's
think we're
not
gonna
any-
separate Christmas.
So,
And that's a city event.
Right.
That's a city event, the Christmas parade, and that's a city event. Your event is not a city
And
event.
that's a city event, that's right, and you're supporting a Christian.
Well, I'm
This,
gonna be quiet.
this is what you don't want to do.
From my perspective, I think, I speak for the council saying that we wholeheartedly support the ministry. I mean, I absolutely support the ministry. I mean, things that you're doing for Christ and the church, 100% support you. What I'm also hearing, though, is that we all need to follow the established ordinance. If it costs, it costs. And I don't really want to get off on tangent, because I think most of us are Christians, right? And we all follow Christ and support the church, and no argument there. I think to do it probably the correct way would just be if anyone wants to use the stage, they got to pay whatever the statute or ordinance says. Just got to follow the ordinance. I don't have any problem with anything as long as we follow that ordinance. So, and that's a simple fix, and we'll just follow the ordinance. Does that make? I mean, I don't know if that makes sense to everybody, but
That's all I'm saying. We're violating our own ordinance.
Yeah, just go by the guidelines.
That's all I'm saying. And I guess, Mr. Haney, and back to your comment, is that there aren't people out at Starlight Village or the parade, handing out Bibles and all that stuff. It's just a celebration of the one Lord Jesus Christ that most of us, I think, worship. And so, and you can go to that event if you want to. You don't have to go to it. But there's not anything more than that that tries to get accomplished, whereas your event, one, we're violating our own ordinance, and two, the push is is to educate people about religion by handing out Bibles is the way I look at it, and that's fine. But if and then people are being harassed, if you will, by people down there because they've had dinner and a drink. So that's the problems I have with it, and that's where it's different. So.
All right, well, I don't think we need to have there's nothing to vote on. We're just going to follow our ordinance. Make it simple. Let's go to agenda item number 10, chickens in City Limits. I have gotten a lot of multiple people have emailed me asking about the chickens, so I'm going to bring it up because they've asked me to bring it up. So I'm bringing it up. It may be, if you buy a lot of eggs, it's probably a good idea. If you're concerned about other factors like, I don't know, cleanliness or smell or noise, it may be a different idea. I was just going to ask everyone what they thought about it. I know it's come up before, but oh, look at there. Councilman Cannell has a handout for us.
I just think we got cats and dogs we can't control.
We're gonna have chickens around here.
I'm going to ask Councilman Cannell, since he prepared this.
No, actually, I just handed it down. It came from this
I
direction.
passed it
Oh,
out.
you passed it, okay.
But,
I mean, I just want to ask everyone for their comments or thoughts or gut
I
feeling.
would like to know from Mr. Jones, if he does know, how does, 'cause there has been referrals to it, how does Midland handle this?
Midland has no chickens.
No,
I may ask, I don't know if I.
but you have to have a certain size lot. So Midland, I mean, Liz, if you're familiar with their ordinance, but.
Liz, can we call you up? We're just wondering, we're just grasping at straw, trying to
Exploratory.
understand.
So I believe Midland does allow chickens, but only on certain size lots.
Do you know the answer?
Yes, they're agriculture estates. They have to be minimum of 1 acre. And there's certain regulations, like they have to be a certain distance from like a living quarter. And so there's a lot of regulations that go with it and quantity of how many they can have as well.
Right.
Okay.
And they can't have roosters.
And I know somebody said that, somewhere I read that you walking away from me?
I saw the thumbs up, so I'm
You don't want to talk about chickens, I think.
Oh, but I was just, when we discussed this before, we were talking about the setbacks and stuff, and so like where I live, which is basically a zero lot line operation, I can't get 50 feet away from my neighbor.
Right.
I mean, there's lots of situations like that, and the worst thing you could do is have that going. So that, I know we discussed that before, but anyway, I just want to make sure that you understand what I was saying. But and people are are pushing that because of the price of eggs. But just so people know that eggs since January 25th have come down 48.70%.
Yeah.
So it's no longer a crisis. In my opinion, and that was the excuse. You saw the restaurants adding $1 to their, one of my favorite little restaurants we eat lunch at, they added $1 to the price for breakfast eggs and so forth. But that trend is certainly down and going down stronger. They reached a high of $8.17 in March, and today they're $2.83 a dozen. No big deal. But that was the impetus of a lot of it. But the other stuff and this thing that Richard handed out, I've got the same information. They do cause problems health-wise. They do have odor, which can be, and it can be airborne. And if it's really a dirty coop, the gases and things that flow off of that, you're downwind of it. You got an opportunity to ingest different kinds of chemicals that are produced by just having the coop there.
Let me ask you a question. You said Midland requires an acre lot?
Acre lot.
How many lots inside the city are an acre? I don't think they're hardly any.
They're not. So they're more remote. So it's more the old, like where it used to be agriculture. So a lot of people ended up keeping that area still, like it's outside of the loop. So, and like I said, it just has to be a minimum of 1 acre, and there's certain regulations that go with that.
Yeah, and I think they have to have certain cages. It's got to be certain cages that you have to have when you got them in there.
Anyone have a strong feeling for or against?
I'm absolutely against it,
I'm
I'm telling
against
you.
Against it?
I
Eddie?
already got a rooster across my street waiting out there.
Hey, man, I've been getting the city to come get him, man.
Craig,
Got a 20 gauge.
any thoughts?
The ones approaching me are 4. And I,
Well, the ones
you know,
approaching me are obviously 4, so.
yeah. I mean,
There's
I'm
certainly
not, I'm
some
not
people
gonna have
for it.
chickens. I'm kind of with Eddie. If we can't get the dogs under control. And I've read, certain municipalities that you gotta have them banded, you gotta have them tattooed. I don't know who goes and tattoos their chickens, but some way to identify them if they do escape. But I can just imagine.
And if it helps, how our zoning works right now when it comes to housing, we're very different than a lot of cities. We focus more on smaller lots than the bigger acreage of the lots, so it creates that, like,
Spacing.
space just doesn't
Spacing.
allow it right now, especially with what we have. And how our code reads is obviously if it's not there, it's a no. You can't have it.
Councilman Vasquez, any?
I'm on the fence on this matter, but I'm more on the no, I'm not for it. Anyway, I'm not an egg eater, by the way.
Councilman Cal, strong feeling?
I hate to go there, and I've been trying to hold myself back from this, but, we've had World War I, World War II. What's the probability we're going to have World War III? It's probably coming. World War III will not look like 2 and 1. The first time they do it, they're going to come over and EMP, fry everything, so all of our grocery stores, everything goes down. The first attack on a country will be your electrical and grids, and everything will go down. That's what a World War III will look like to start off with. So what I'm saying is that my only argument would be, gosh, if people did have some chickens and people had some gardens and people had some fruit trees, maybe not so many Odessans would die. But other than that, I would admit I'm on the fence.
Okay. Councilman Haney?
I mean, sometimes, man, we just eat so much chicken.
You've been waiting on that.
Move we adjourn.
I'm on the fence.
Yeah, that
kind of did it.
I think we can table that for a while after that visual. All right, it's been a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
So moved. Second.
Second by Councilman Stoker. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.